Hi, this is Rickenbach for CSC842. This is my third module, and what I wanted to look into was actually how elements from a web page are brought out, or how they're served up to me sitting at home or you sitting at home. And traditionally what you would have is a web page here like the SU homepage, and lots of images or elements like audio files or video files. But here we have some images like a groundbreaking ceremony. And the way those are served to you is if you go to look at the source HTML, you have an image tag and then a source attribute, src equals, and then it gives you a full URL to an image. It doesn't have to be a full URL. It could be a relative to the home page. But if you click on it, you can see it's the same image that was here on the first one. So traditionally, you would have a web server that serves up the HTML, your images, your audio files, video files, but text isn't so bad sending across, but when you start sending a lot of images, or especially video, that can be taxing on a web server, especially if you're getting hit a lot of hits. So what's come out, well, it's been a while now, is content delivery networks. One of the bigger companies that does is Akamai. Another popular one is Cloudflare. And what these companies do is they have points of presence around the globe, and they're situated. They have servers and data centers that are close to the customers of people who use them. So you would offload your images to Akamai. They would put replicas of your files out on servers closer out to the endpoints where the customers are, and then that way they're actually serving the images or audio files or video files. And what this also does is can also allow the CDNs or content delivery networks to absorb DDoS attacks. So instead of you think you're attacking, say, eBay, you really wind up attacking Akamai because they're the ones really hosting a lot of the high volume data. So I was just trying to figure out, how do you know where these images are actually coming from? I mean, it looks like it's coming from DSU, but how do we know? So from that came my project, which is Columbo, and he's the great detective that's going to tell me where these source attributes really come from. So the way Columbo works is it basically loads the HTML file, pumps it through beautiful soup, and just looks for everything that has a source tag. Once it goes through the source tag, it goes through and looks at each element, and then it makes a connection and downloads that data, and then sees where that connection, where the actual connection connects to. And this is done through PS utility. And what I did with the PS util is you can have here we go. PS util, I've have it look at the current process ID or the running process. Once you have that, you can look at all kinds of information. I was only concerned about network connectivity. So every time I start pulling a file down, once the data is actually transferred, I start and I look to see where it actually came from and see if there's a mismatch. Basically, it looks to see if there's a mismatch between the IP addresses, if there is, note it, and if there was a mismatch between the fully qualified domain name versus where it really came from, and we'd note that as well. The other thing that was kind of neat with this is using a name tuple. Let me get to that in a little bit. I'll talk about it now. Anyway, name tuple, I use that to store the data that I'm recording for each individual source element. So we have the name, IP mismatch, if there was one, yes or no, original IP, real IP, blah blah blah. But what's cool is when you can write. One of my options is writing the output as a CSV. That's really probably the most useful way of using this tool. And by using the name tuple, I can use this and just pull out the fields, and then that'll just write the headers out in the CSV file. And I'll show you that in a second when I run Columbo here. So if you look at the help file, help, you can specify the directory where the output goes to. We can also decide to save copies of the files we're looking at. I mean, I go through all the trouble of downloading, establishing the connection, and downloading the file, might as well just save it if you want to, so you can kind of scrape the web pages that way if you wanted. It's not the primary intent, but it works. An output in CSV if you want it, and individual URLs or a group of URLs. So we'll take a look right here. We'll go Columbo. We're going to do the DSU web page. We'll put a directory called DSU, and we'll put the output as I said, the CSV output is probably the most interesting or best way to look at it. I dump the output to the screen as well, but oh shoot. I forgot to save. We're not going to see anything if we don't save it. But the CSV output is the most useful, because you'll see how I dump the information. I wasn't really sure how to dump it to the screen to make it useful. That's kind of open to interpretation. I just kind of dumps the whole data set. But here you can see the CSV I created. And like I said, from doing that, grabbing the fields, I was able to get this whole top row for the headers. But you can go for DSU's webpage. You can see for the IP mismatch, there are no IP mismatches for any of this information we drag across. For fully qualified domain names, though, we're seeing there is some differences, some mismatches, but it's nothing really earth-shattering. It's just, the names are different for dsu.edu. It all points to the same web server behind the scenes. So let's try something a little more interesting. We'll go and do somebody does something. eBay. And we'll go back. In the eBay directory, you can see what's coming across. It's saving each individual file on the home page. And we can look at the CSV for that. Okay, now here's another one. IP mismatch, we do have one here. And that's related to double-click, which that really isn't that much of a concern. Earlier I had come up with ones where there was a mismatch for some of these things. But if you look at it on the fully qualified domain name match, even though the IPs aren't showing up as different, the fully qualified domain names are showing up as different. And part of that is you can see that eBay is using Akamai for deploying their images and other files. So anyway, it was something I needed to do. I was trying to find a way to determine if a CDN was really being used, but other things it could be doing is you could also see, like I said, I saw some other things with eBay going on where it looked like it might have been files that were being served from another server with a different IP address than what you would expect. Maybe something hidden behind the scenes, maybe a load balancer or something like that going on, but might provide a good attack vector for exposing some servers you probably might not know about, because that actually didn't, the IP address didn't resolve to an actual name. So anyway, that's Columbo. Looking forward to hear your feedback on it, and let me know what you think. Take care.